Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to the final day of Declutter week. Today we are going to tackle some of my palettes. As you might know, earlier this year I created a shopping block for this year where I wanted to look at a couple of palettes in my collection. So I pulled out 15 palettes to look over in my collection this year and decide if I want to declutter them, keep them, or what I wanted to do with them. So that is kind of what I'm going to go through today. So today we're going to go through the 15 palettes, and I'm going to let you know what I'm deciding to keep, what I'm deciding to clutter, and so on. So I have the palette next to me. I'm not going to pull them up because I'm scared that I will drop them, but there are 15 palettes and I'm going to go through them in brand order. So I'm just going to jump into it. But before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So we have 4 Anastasia palettes to tackle first. Let's start with the one that is on top. And first up we have my Soft Glam palette, which is a beautiful kind of neutral palette. This was a cult favorite back in the day, and I still think this is a beautiful color story. Like, they look at it today, has like similar tones to this, but obviously what I did today is more of an impactful look. The shimmers are way more impactful, the mattes are more pigmented. This is a beautiful palette, but it is definitely getting old in my collection, which is why it was on the shopping block. What I have decided with this palette is I'm not going to declutter it quite yet. This is actually on my list of potential pans for next year. I haven't decided 100% yet what I want to pan, but this is on the list. So this is one that I might pan next year, or, you know, coming up in the next 2 years. We'll see how I do. But for now, I am going to keep it in my collection as a potential to pan. But, you know, if I don't end up panning it next year or even the year after, this will for sure go. But for now, I have decided to keep it and put it in my to pan pile. The next 2 palettes I actually want to talk about together. We have these 2 right here, which is my Subculture palette and my Jackie Aina palette. So my Subculture palette looks like this. It's quite well loved. It has a lot of pans in it, as you can see. So that is the first palette. I'm going to show you the second one first, and then we'll talk about them. And the second one is, like I said, the Jackie Aina palette, which looks like this on the inside. So both of these palettes are really nice quality. The colors in here are beautiful, but the thing is, with these 2 palettes, they are relatively new to my collection as well. I think I even picked those 2 up at the same time when they had like a deal of like buy one get one half off or something like that on the Anastasia website. But I do love a lot of colors in here. There's some shades in each of these palettes that I absolutely love. Like, let's start with the Subculture palette. Of course, I love Electric, I love Roxy, New Wave, Dawn, even Edge. Like, some of the shades in here I absolutely love. Fudge too is a super nice brown. And then in the Jackie Aina palette, I love a couple shades in here too. I love the shade Sam, Trust Issues, Sponsored. I love these 2 shades, like Edges and Ginger. Love, love, love those shades. But there's also shades in each of these palettes that I don't like that much. So what I have decided to try to do with these 2 palettes is I'm actually going to try to combine these 2 into one. So I haven't decided which one to keep yet. Maybe this one, because the packaging is a little bit nicer. It doesn't get as dirty as this one. So I'm going to try to take out my least favorite shades from each of these palettes, and I'm going to try to put like my favorite shades from this palette into this palette. So I will have like an ultimate, like it's going to be like an ultimate autumn palette. I'm foreseeing myself to keep like this half of the palette mainly, maybe Sam as well, like I said. And then I need to like logistically figure out like how many shades I can keep from each palette. But then from the Subculture palette, again, I'm going to keep like my favorite shades, which are like mainly this part of the palette right here, and then like the yellow and the orange. But again, we're just going to see what I decide to do with these ones, but I am going to combine these 2 into one. So I guess I'm going to kind of like keep one, declutter one, but it will be like a combination of the 2. So those 2 are my next 2 palettes, and I think I'm going to do a video on these like when I combine them. So hopefully that will turn out okay. I have no idea logistically how I'm going to do that yet. So if you have any recommendations or like tips on how to depot these, let me know. So yeah, that is the next 2 palettes. So moving on to the next brand, we have 3 palettes from Colourpop on the shopping block. We have the palette Lilac You a Lot, the Aha Honey, and the Mar palette. But I actually only have one of those palettes left in my collection. The other 2, which is the Lilac You a Lot and the Mar palette, I have actually already decluttered from my collection. So the only one that I have left is the Aha Honey palette, which is a yellow tone palette looking like this. And this is one that I'm going to hold on to for now because I do really like the yellow tones in here. And I don't really have like, I mean, I do have some yellow shades scattered throughout the collection, but I do love doing yellow looks, and I feel like this palette is really handy to have, so I'm going to hold on to it for now. But again, the other 2 I already did declutter. I decluttered those in my like declutter all my Colourpop eyeshadows, which I did earlier this year. I kept a couple shades from both palettes, but I did declutter both of them from my collection, so they are out of my like palette rotation. So again, only one of my 3 Colourpop palettes got kept. Okay, so going through the list, I actually realized I have one more Colourpop palette that I missed earlier, which is the Colourpop at First Sight palette. This one as well is one that I'm going to hold on to for now. This is almost like a better version for me than the Subculture palette because the color stories are somewhat similar. Like, they're not the same at all. People love the Subculture palette. So if you look at the shade one by one, they're like not that many exact dupes, but there are like similar vibes. You have like the kind of grungy rainbow kind of vibes, I would say, with more like wearable colors. But this is my preferred palette out of the two because this one has like more kind of colorful undertones rather than like the really deep ones, because I feel like with this one a lot of the shades blend out to be really, really deep and not like colorful anymore, whereas with this one I feel like the colors still shine through. So I prefer this palette. It's also newer in my collection, so I am going to hold on to this one for now. So that means like 2 of my Colourpop palettes got kept, 2 got decluttered. The next brand that I have is Natasha Denona, and I have 2 palettes on the shopping block from her. We have the Sunrise palette, which is a really, really beautiful palette. That's actually my first, like, is it my first? No, it's my first midi Natasha Denona palette. I did have the gold and the Metropolis since before, but this is my first, like, typical midi palette. But yeah, this one looks like this. It's a beautiful color story, but it was on a shopping block because I felt like the formula in here wasn't my absolute favorite, and I wasn't very inspired by this palette. However, I have used this one in my No Pan Left Behind project. I actually reached most of these palettes already, No Pan Left Behind. And this is one that I really, really fell in love with doing my No Pan Left Behind because I love the look that came out of here. And also taking out the eyeshadows one by one, I think they are absolutely beautiful. Like, looking at these shades here, they use such beautiful undertones, and even these here create some really, really nice sunrise kind of looks. So this one is going nowhere. I really, really love this palette now, and I'm happy that I fell back in love with it. Then the second one is the Love palette, which looks like this. This is the one out of the 2 that I am least in love with. This is probably one that if I had to declutter any of my Natasha Denona palette, I would probably go with this one. The color story is just a little bit like jumbled together for me, and there is a lot of like deep tones and like these more kind of these type of purples, which aren't almost my favorite. There's also a couple of dots in here, like formula wise, especially this purple here. So overall, it's not my favorite palette, not in my whole collection, to be honest, and also it's my least favorite from Natasha Denona. But since there are a couple of shades in here that I really love, and you can take them out and mix with other palettes, like they are all magnetic and they easily pop out, I'm going to hold on to this one for now because I feel like it is nice to build my own palettes. I can build my own Natasha Denona midi palettes, things like that. So again, I'm going to hold on to this one for now. But it's definitely one that I want to keep experimenting with next year and decide what I want to do. Maybe it's going to stay on the chopping block next year. I don't know yet. But yeah, it's not my favorite palette, and I really just want to get to know it better and hopefully fall in love with this one as I did this one. The next palette we have, which is palette number 11, is a little quad, and this one is from Charlotte Tilbury. It is the Exaggerized Filter Quad. I don't know what it's called. It's called the Exaggerized Bigger Brighter Eyes Filter. It's just a nice little like everyday kind of quad, and I had this on the shopping block because I just wasn't sure if I needed it because I have these shades over and over and over in my collection. But it is a really nice quad. It's an easy one to bring. It's super small, compact, and you can create a really nice subtle look with this one. So I'm going to hold on to this one for now, also because it's very, very new to my collection, and I did like the look that I created with this one. I used to create like one look with all 4 shades. So yeah, it's just, I know it's a little bit redundant in my collection, but the quality is really nice, and it's also one that I might be able to pan in the future. There is 5.2 grams in here, so still quite a lot for, especially for a quad. So I think the shades in here are quite deep, but yeah, overall I'm gonna hold on to this one for now. It is again a very useful wearable palette to have. Okay, so we have 4 more palettes to go, and the next 2 come from the same brand again, and that is Beauty Bay. So we have 2 palettes from this brand on the shopping block, and first up we have the Book of Magic palette. This is one that you probably all know is not my favorite in my collection. It is a beautiful color story, but I just don't reach for it, and it's something about it that I am thrown off by. This is one that I coveted for so long. I actually got this one off eBay because it was discontinued, but I coveted it so much and I wanted it in my collection. And now when I have it, I'm realizing it's one of my least favorite palettes in my collection. So, you know, that's not ideal, but I have actually decided to declutter this one. There's a couple shades in here that I'm probably going to hold on to and dip into my singles. Like there's a couple shades that I really like, especially like the purples up here. And then some of the blues are quite unique. So I did dupe all of these palettes I have duped out in my own collection. If you haven't seen that series, I will have them linked down below if you want to check them out. But I did like duping out my own palettes, so I compared my palettes to like other palettes. So for example, I compared this one to some other palettes in my collection, as well as try to dupe it out with my singles. And I did realize that some of the shades in here are quite unique, so I'm going to look back at that video and I'm going to decide what shades from this to be the pot. From all of the palettes that I'm decluttering, there might be like a handful of shades that I keep like into my singles collection, but I'm going to try not to keep too many. But from this one, I feel like there are definitely a couple of shades that I do want to hold on to. So yeah, this one is going to be depotted and decluttered. I think again I'm going to do a video with all of those kind of depotting sessions. So what I decided to keep, we will see in that video. Regarding the Wilderness palette, this is one that is still on the shopping block for me. I'm going to hold on to it for now because these have some really unique tones in my collection. I actually don't have too many colorful palettes left in my collection. Or if I do, they're like kind of more muted colors. I don't really have anything super bright. I also don't have any like rainbow palettes in my collection really either. I do have a lot of like color in my singles collection, which is usually what I reach for when I do want to do colorful looks. But this palette I do really like, and it's really nice quality too. It's just that I don't reach for it very often because it is so colorful, and that's kind of one of the reasons why it's on the shopping block. But I am going to hold on to it for now. I do really like the looks that I created with this palette. Some of the shimmers in here are absolutely incredible. I love the shade of Grey and the shade Fossil. Like these two here are some of my favorites. And again, the mattes in here are really versatile and really useful for me. So I'm going to hold on to this palette. So again, 50% of my Beauty Bay palettes on the shopping block have been decluttered. The last two palettes that I have are these two right here. So both kind of blue leaning palettes. The first one is the Blueberry Muffin palette from BH Cosmetic. This was such a hit when it came out. It is such a beautiful palette. The color story in here is absolutely amazing. I really love these kind of tones right here mixed with the blues, and just the tones of the blues are amazing too. Again, it's quite a unique palette in my collection regarding the colors. I don't really have these type of blues in a lot of other places, but again, it's not a palette that I reach for very often, and it's so hard, but I have actually decided to declutter this one. I am, however, going to keep a lot of the shades in my singles collection, but I'm just going to keep like my absolute favorites. Like some of these shimmers here, they are really nice and sparkly and like pretty, but I have better ones in my singles or in other palettes too. So I reckon a lot of these like more neutral shimmers like this one will be decluttered. I might keep like one of them if it's unique enough. I do really like these two shimmers though, but I'm going to compare them to other things in my collection. Or actually, I already done that, but I'm going to rewatch that video. So with the shimmers, I'm not sure. I'm actually going to keep the silver here though, I think, because I don't really have a pure silver in my singles collection. So not too many shimmers, maybe like, again, potentially these three here I'm going to keep. And then with the mattes, that's kind of what I'm going to keep a lot. I think I'm going to keep like the blues because again, they are quite unique. I'm going to look at what I have currently, and if I have a dupe for any of them, I will declutter it. But I think they are quite unique, like I said. Same with these browns here. I really like the undertones. I might keep both of those. But then these two here, I'm going to declutter. Fluffy, it's a beautiful shade, but I'm not sure. So again, we're going to see how many of these I decide keeping. But yeah, I'm going to deposit it into my singles because I feel like I'm going to get more use out of that way, and it's going to give like more versatility to my collection, because I don't think to reach for these shades in here where they're in this palette. And also there's a lot of shades in here that are overlapping, so I'm hoping to declutter at least half of the palette when I declutter it, and then again we'll see what I want to keep in my singles, but this one as well is going to be out of my collection. Then the last palette that I have is my Luna Beauty Eternal Eclipse palette, which is one that I was sure that I was going to declutter when I put this on the shopping block. It's because it's very like deep, very dark, very blue. But the thing is, it's not very deep, it's not very dark. I mean, there is a lot of darkness, I'm not going to lie. But it's not very blue. There is only like really a couple of blue shades at the bottom. And this shade, like in this row here, is what is like really deep. If you look at the rest of the palette, it's not that dark leaning. So I do really like it. And some of these shades here are really like nice and unique to my collection too. Yeah, this is a palette that I was expecting to declutter, but I'm actually going to hold on to it for now. The formula in here is really good as well. I really love this palette because of it. Like the mattes are super nice, and again, the shimmers are quite unique. yes, I'm not gonna lie, especially the shimmer on the bottom row, it's not things that I reach for quite often, but I'm gonna hold on to it for, again, the mattes and the top row mainly because it is quite unique to my collection. And yeah, I really, really love this palette. So it's one that, again, I have fallen in love with, and it's actually also an unexpected new favorite. Not favorite maybe, but like it's one that I have unexpectedly fallen in love with because I didn't expect to love this palette, but I do really like it. So looking at my pile of things, these are the ones here that I'm going to tackle to like the pot or pan. These two here, again, are going to be divided into one. So we have one palette like out of my collection of those. We have this one here is going to be cluttered, and then this one here. So that is 3. And then, like I said, I have already decluttered the Lilac You a Lot palette and the Mar palette. So that is 5. So that means I'm going to get rid of 5 out of my actually 16 on the shopping block. Because again, I said 15 before, but I forgot about the Colourpop at First Sight palette. So 16 on the shopping block. So I'm getting rid of 5 of them, which is about a third. And then again, the Soft Glam palette is going to go on my to pan pile. And then the rest I am going to keep. So let me know if any of these are like surprising to you, and what you thought I would declutter and what I wanted to keep. I know that I'm still keeping a lot of these palettes, but I honestly really love them. And one of the reasons why I wanted to put them on the shopping block was not necessarily to like declutter all of them. It was also to just see what I could fall back in love with and just get to know my collection better. So yeah, that is it for this video, you guys. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've done something like this year and what you ended up decluttering. And since this is the last video in the series, I really hope you have enjoyed Declutter Week. I will have another video up tomorrow. I'm still doing Vlogmas, so I will have a video up every single day of December. So you can expect a new video tomorrow, but it's just not going to be a Declutter Week video. But yeah, I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys!